everyone. Welcome back to Anarchapulco TV, your home for the world's premier Liberty Conference happening in Acapulco, Mexico very soon, February 13th through the 16th. I'm your host, David Rodriguez, and I'm very excited because we have a guest and a speaker on today who's going to be joining us in Mexico, and he's got a lot of things. He's really a transformational man, I want to say. You know, somebody who's out there conscious and awake, empowering men and families in general, helping you become healthier. He is a self-sabotage expert, entrepreneur, father, husband, and someone I have a lot of respect for. So we're going to get into all these cool things that he's doing to help you and help the world. Before we do that, let's welcome to the show, Jason Christoff. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, David. I'm excited to be going down, and I really look forward to visiting everybody and taking in a lot of the talks myself.
Yep. Absolutely. One of the great things is that there's so many good speakers, and even people that are not on stage, people just come as attendees, have a lot of awareness, and they're in action, so really good people that are going to be there. And we're grateful that you're going to be there. You're someone who has evolved, and this is the theme this year. We want to evolve beyond the state, evolve beyond the programming, the victimization that we have for ourselves. And your topic is very interesting. I've never heard that concept before as a kind of a message. And I think it's really important because, the first few years, it was like, fuck the government. And, and it's all true, right?
It is.
True, the Federal Reserve, the military industrial complex, the schools, the health system. It's all true. However, it's not an empowered state. So I'm curious about some of the concepts you might be talking about. But first of all, you want to talk about like what you do and how you help people, whether, body, mind, kind of the inner world as we begin the conversation?
Yeah, it's more of the inner world. Look, I still own a couple of health clinics here in Canada when I really wanted to help people. So I started off as an exercise coach and nutrition coach, and I found no one would really follow the protocols that I would lay down. So it was a spiritual, I was getting into some sort of spiritual bankruptcy. I didn't know why these people would pay me thousands of dollars and not go forward. And it was only food. They couldn't change their diet. They couldn't dedicate to an exercise regime. Very frustrating for me. So I started looking into neuroscience and the psychology. And it was very clear that I was unaware as an exercise and nutrition coach that the psychology of the client is what determined if they were going to follow or not this kind of regime to better health. And then I started seeing it with a lot of other areas. There's financial self-sabotage, relationship self-sabotage. And what I found is that the brain is extremely powerful. It responds to repetitive messages. And it was working sure, a lot of my clients had repetitive messages, say, from their family to hold very illogical and irrational beliefs about doctors and medication and vaccination, and their programming was inverted. If they followed their beliefs that their parents downloaded into their subconscious mind, of course they weren't going to be successful. But how do you really change that? What are the solutions? And that is what I'm really going to address during my talk, is sort of explain self-sabotage 101, how to uncomplicate your life, and really try to explain to people that they have a very powerful part of the brain, controls 95 to 99% of their behavior, and it runs recordings. And those recordings are implanted into your belief system by repetitive messages. And a lot of people aren't aware that there's a lot of repetitive messages in the media that are purposely put there so that the humans are, and this is where we, can get into the great talk down there, and I can freewheel, because I don't have to explain to anybody down there that people are acting illogically. They're asleep, or we describe them as sleepwalkers, but there's reasons for this. And there's technology we can use to get them back out and reprogram their subconscious minds with ideas and beliefs and customs and traditions and rituals that are logical, that make them more independent. And a lot of the downloads that we're getting from our parents, their parents have gotten from the government and repetitive messages in media to live very messy lifestyles, to think that there should be job focus instead of entrepreneurial focus. And that can come to us through our parents through repetitive cueing, or it can come to us through every movie. Like there's so many negative repetitive messages. And if people knew how repetitive messages impact your subconscious belief system. Even this morning, I was listening to Tina Turner's song in a chiropractic office, What's Love Got to Do with It? And one of the lines were, what is good is your heart if the heart's going to be broken. And if you know hypnotherapy and you know how to program the subconscious mind, there was just enough repetition inside that song to negatively program someone against love, against opening their heart, against living a successful lifestyle. It's all about hiding and darkness and despair and depression. And people don't understand that these repetitive messages have to be shut off as you reprogram. And so that's where the evolution aspect's going to come in for my talk, so people can understand what to shut off and what to upregulate so that they can reprogram their subconscious mind. Just like the way they learn to drive their car, the subconscious makes sure that when you get up the next day, you don't have to learn again. So when you get up in the morning and you've reprogrammed for, say, 21 or 30 days, when you get up and you know medications aren't good to accelerate your health, vaccination, circumcision, voting. These things make no sense, but they're programmed into the populace like they're logical and rational pursuits. But if we can override those, we can program ourselves almost robotically to only seek truth, to only seek happiness, to only seek pleasure and success and cooperation instead of the competitive nature. Even our football games, even our hockey games up here in Canada, people aren't aware that when you watch that, you're being programmed for competitiveness and not cooperation. And there's so many different aspects to that. There's a food aspect, there's a lifestyle aspect, there's environmental impacts that can really affect your brain chemistry to make you cling even harder to those very illogical and irrational customs and traditions like Halloween and Christmas. These things make no sense. And it makes no sense to dress your kid up as a goblin and poison him every October 31st. But the brain, as I'm going to demonstrate in the short talk, is tribal based. It really wants to follow, and the subconscious is a safety and security seeking machine, and it's designed so that when the human being is beamed down here, it doesn't matter if you're in a tribe that bites the head off live bats for breakfast. You're just going to do it because that's what everybody else is doing. And we all know the media has a job of giving a false it misrepresents what the majority is doing, and it hijacks our tribal nature to make us follow illogical and irrational methods by which we interface with the world, and it gets people overweight, it makes people depressed, it makes them less financially vital than they should be. And so the solutions will be there for anybody that wants to come to the talk. It's simple to reprogram your subconscious mind, but you got to stop that flow of liarrhea out of the screen, or the messages cancel out. It's destructive interference. Hope that makes sense.
This is beautiful. And I was just thinking about it. First of all, you can tell this guy's a very well-researched and experienced. He's written over 1,000 articles on his website, jchristoff.com. But you're talking about subconscious mind, and we're taught in school, right? And so I'm a principal, and we learn about how the kids are programmed. Kids are just pure subconscious mind, right? So whatever we say to them for like the first 5-7 years of their life, they just receive. And so this is why I think peaceful parenting is another component. You're a father. You can talk about this here in a second. But we have to realize that the state has programmed us, the media has programmed us, and this has not just been like a few years, it's generational. And as the book, Understanding Your Slavery says, the state is intergenerational organized crime. And so I have an idea called intergenerational freedom, where we're conscious and intentional about teaching our children or just young people around us about the principles of self-ownership, the non-aggression principle, and self-defense. These are natural rights, inalienable rights, whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever you believe. These are innate in us, and the state has co-opted these rights from us. We sign up contracts we don't know, and we just give our power away. And so thankfully to the internet, we're able to learn about these new truths, or I should say rediscover them. We get to meet people like you, Jason, and actually share this. You know, this is what happens at Anarchapulco. You meet conscious men and women who are awakening to what's going on. And if you're like me, or maybe Jason, I don't know about you, but like your family doesn't really have interest in this. You know, they're putting all their energy in the games and the sports. And hey, I grew up an athlete and I like sports too. But then once you realize it is a tool of manipulation to cause, you know, like you mentioned, competitiveness, or maybe that tribal, like, you get the adrenaline, you feel like you achieved something. We won. No, you didn't. You didn't win unless you're actually on the team, or you're a coach, or you're a trainer. You didn't do anything. Right.
Exactly.
And so, you know, so this is what we're trying to do. We want to have a life of freedom, of health, of abundance. And it all starts with reprogramming that subconscious mind, as you mentioned. And so just the last part here, I'll give it back, is that this has been, the scientists know about the subconscious mind, you know, and this is, I would say, some of the research I've seen, I think back in the maybe 20s, maybe in the 30s, kind of understanding the mind, you know, and I think Winston Churchill said the empires of the future are the empires of the mind. So what we're seeing now with forced vaccines, forced schooling, mass taxation, mass spraying in the air, all these different coercive measures are very scientific. So they don't want to have the bloody revolution. They want to use our minds. I think that's why some of the work that you're doing is super important, because it's a deprogramming or an unlearning. So what would you share with people that are aware of these types of programs, but it does seem overwhelming? You know, we mentioned all these organizations, like, man, where do I start? Is there some basic beginning point that you tell them to begin with? You mentioned 21 days or 30 days. Where would somebody start to reprogram themselves just in the first initial steps?
Well, the first initial steps are really easy because you have to get healthy. There's two parts of the brain that really focus in on the work I do with the self-sabotage and how to overcome it. There's the prefrontal cortex. That part of the brain is meant to check all your ideas. It's meant to filter them. And the ones that don't really qualify as socially acceptable, or things that will work in your long-term benefit, they're supposed to be filtered out. Mm-hmm. Now, the first step is trying to eat healthy, because if you eat poorly, it turns on your limbic system, which is called the reptilian, the reptilian brain, or the R complex, or the hindbrain. And that part of the brain is notoriously low IQ. It's into instant gratification. And when you're if you're into instant gratification, you're very prone to self-sabotage, because that's the category of living style that gets you into all kinds of trouble, because the child mind, or the child IQ, that's active when the limbic system is on. And don't forget, if you eat poorly, the limbic system is heavily activated, because the metabolism registers that you poisoned yourself, and the fight or flight system is always hyperactive if it registers that your life is going to be shortened. It thinks you're being attacked. So not only your fight or flight system, it's not only active when you're getting mugged, or you're financially destitute, or you had a really bad day. If you ingest toxins, and this is what the vaccines are about, it's meant to drop your IQ, and it's also meant to destroy your neural net as well, so that you can never come back from it if you have a brain damage from the neurotoxins of vaccines. Like if I scare you with the coronavirus and you go into a fear response, at least you can tail whip out of it later to regain your full IQ. If I poison you, you can't tail whip out of the low IQ, fear-based fight or flight, activation that happens when you poison yourself. So there's lots of neuroscience. The whole point of that, and I know we don't really have the time, but if you eat well, you activate the prefrontal cortex, is where the cooperation lives, where love lives, where your self-esteem and your self-confidence. And even the prefrontal cortex, when active, it's still a little scared for you to be richer, to walk outside the herd, but it will give you a tether. It will say, just be careful. If your limbic system is activated because you're not leading a healthy lifestyle, that part of the brain wants no part of change because it's registering you as already injured. And when you're injured, you need the tribe. You need the wolf pack. You need the herd. So when you're polluted, you cling to the old tribal rituals, the vaccination, the circumcision, the Halloween. The limbic system cries out, for the love of God, don't leave me, tribe. Make sure I'm fitting in. I'm doing everything I can to fit in. That part of the brain, if active, won't let you venture into your best life, because doing so creates more fear. The limbic system activation means you're already at max levels of fear. It wants nothing to do with more fear. So the change opportunity will be instantly shut down. So I hope that makes some sense. And the self-saboteur is notoriously afraid to change because of tribal judgments. And so there's lots of solutions. As long as the people get a real sort of base perimeter understanding of the self-sabotage. We're going to discuss some examples as well, like either Michael Vick, or you could do anybody, Tiger Woods, Britney Spears, Aaron Hernandez. People have to understand that self-sabotage is everywhere, and it affects movie stars, it affects sports stars, and it affects mom and dad who can't get in shape back at their own house because they're afraid to get in shape because everybody else is not in shape. The tribe has a massive influence on people.
Oh my gosh. This is so important, because as we are awakening to what's going on, these criminal organizations who are hijack the schools and the financial system and the health system, it is a little bit like, oh, what can you do? There's a little bit of defeatism, and that's got to be by design, or the self-sabotage has got to be like engineered, because some of my work is with schools, and this is back in the 1800s where Johann Fichte said, after a state has been in charge of the school system for one generation, the student, the adult, will no longer be able to think anything different than what their teacher would approve of. And then you wouldn't need an army and policemen, because they will police themselves. And this is one of the most mind-blowing quotes that you can look up about that. So it is about that self-limitation, the learned helplessness. And so this is why one reason that I brought you on, because like we have to evolve, ladies and gentlemen, and like this is a serious thing, and we can have fun. We're gonna have, believe me, we're gonna have a lot of fun. There's a beach, there's gonna be concerts, there's gonna be yoga, there's other stuff, Verde vegan food stuff there, like all dance. There's a lot of empowering things. So I think this is the other intention, is to make like a new freedom culture, you know, for the people that aren't gonna awaken to these criminals and thugs and bullies who are trying to basically take control of your entire family. Then, you know, we got to build our own little tribe. We got to build our own voluntary villages, our own freedom communities, whether online or in person, because we need that support, and we are sabotaging ourselves. So as a father, just lastly here, how do you approach raising a child knowing what you know? I mean, this is like the subconscious mind is like super exciting. I'm starting to see some of the stuff that you're seeing out there. How do you approach teaching them, like, you know, about the state, about the plan for world government? And like, this is the world that the great quote is, we didn't inherit this world from our parents, we're borrowing it from our children. So it's like we're passing the life on to them, and we don't want to freak them out, but we do want to empower them. So I'm curious what your philosophy is in raising your child.
Well, my philosophy is simple. I just tell her exactly what's going on, make her watch a couple videos on YouTube so she understands about her phone and how dangerous her phone is with the Wi-Fi, and how far to keep it away, and why, you know, they don't, you know, why she's attracted to TikToks and all this stupid stuff that she's really obsessed with. And I tell her, you're getting, like, I explain everything to her, and then you just hope to God that they put it together somewhere down the road. That's why I wrote all the articles. I think I got 2,300 now. Oh, wow. Worst comes to worst, she can always go to my website, and she can go to some of my videos and some of my talks and see her dad trying to explain. But I think there's so many awakened people now. I think there's a lot of hope. I really see the structure failing. And people are really starting to catch on because we're all ruled by psychology. And if you look at whether it's vaccination, circumcision, fear in general, or bad food, or how these people doing these illogical things, it all comes back to psychology and the mastering of that psychology by our human farmers. And if we know their tricks, I tell people, you go to a magic show and you know how the guy cuts the girl in half. The magic show no longer impresses you. And that's what I teach people. Learn the tricks of the media magicians, and then you can see right through it. It doesn't matter what else they're going to do. You just know their attempts, and their attempts will fail, and then something better will rise up. And that's what we're going to focus on as the solution when we talk. And everybody's doing that. I'm really proud to be there.
Yep, absolutely. You're a part of it. You're one of the leaders, in the conscious awakening, Jason. Thanks for what you're doing. And if you're watching this, come to an event, whether it's Anarchapulco this year or years in the future or other freedom, voluntary, anarchist, all peaceful events. Come hang out, come meet people, do their workshops, sign up, buy their stuff, hire them, or just come up and meet them, and maybe they'll do a show with you or something. But as he mentioned, over 2,000 articles. So this is the rhetoric part of it, to create something that will exist beyond us, whether it's text or video or audio or art or something else. We got to use the media that we now have at our access to now. For years, the TV and the radio and newspapers are all bought off and probably still are, but now we have a new media. So I encourage you to find out what you're passionate about, join us, come have some fun and learn, and start creating the freedom media that you desire or inspired by if you want or not. There's no coercion here, but there's a lot of great people like Jason at this event. We got 4 stages: the main stage, the crypto stage, the health stage, and the family stage. There's workshops, there's yoga, there's a lot of cool things, plant medicine if you're into that, concerts, and most importantly, a time to focus on yourself and do some self-care, whether it's for fun or business or whatever you're interested in. It's going to be there in Anarchapulco. So Jason, thanks for joining us on the show today. And for the people out there watching, get involved, do something locally. You are the one you've been waiting for, as we all are. And we are the change that we want to be in this world. We're going to keep spreading the peace, the love, and the anarchy worldwide. And we'll see you next time at Anarchapulco TV.